So yeah, we're here with Mr. Ramkumar Narinesingh, and we're talking about ethics.
Of course. Morning, Stefan.
Morning, man. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. So 20 minutes past your 7. Let's go. Ethics. Let's deal with that.
Well, so Stefan, I'm going to make a public comment on the issue of ethics. I made a personal observation of how I have seen society evolve when it comes to ethics. So, in historical times, as I said, the good old days, Stefan, that's what people say all the time. Most people who were probably born in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, and to some extent in the 90s as well, they could attest to this. As you were growing up in whatever village, city, street, town, whatever, what you had was a lot of influence from the people around you, the elders in the environment that you were in. And you would find that your parents or your grandparents or your members of your family, neighbors, etc., they would promote maintaining a standard of committing to your word, talking the truth,
Yes.
mannerism, simple things like that.
Yeah.
And it was highly regarded in society. As a matter of fact, you were looked upon with great disdain if you were somebody that compromised on a verbal commitment that you gave, or you did not have proper mannerism, or even in terms of how you present yourself and how your cleanliness.
Yes.
You know, your standard of how you present yourself as kempt. And the education system, Stefan, was limited. And the access to the education system was even more limited.
Right.
So you had people maximizing the value of whatever education systems that they had to try and grow and develop their careers. So in simplicity, you had a society that promoted a high standard of ethics, but where there was little or a finite amount of resources when it comes to academics.
Right.
And then over time, Stefan, with the advent of government support systems, I remember GATE, and other forms of structures in society that promoted academics development and access to academics, people started to see, and of course, even our family, members of the family promoted that if you got a higher standard of education, you would have more opportunities. So it was a natural inclination for that type of personal development.
Right.
But what happened, unfortunately, is that the institutions where people sought this academic development, they began focusing significantly, in my opinion, they began focusing significantly on the academics success and the academics development. And what happened was, in my opinion again, I saw people moving away from the ethics development.
Right.
So there wasn't a balanced development, Stefan. So people, in simplicity, society promoted a recognition of academics, and ethics became a far behind leading factor. And now we have a society where there's a high degree of questionability when it comes to ethics and people's behavior as it relates to that standard.
Right.
And a lot of people who have high education success, a significant amount of accolades when it comes to academia, they seem to lack the basic standard of civility, decorum, to some extent even in terms of how they present themselves, in terms of their attire, and more so in the ability to commit to whatever they would have engaged in.
Yeah.
Now, nobody is perfect, myself included, and that sounds, in my opinion, all the time like a cliche for an excuse. But it's not really about perfection. In my opinion, different situations and different circumstances will require, or will result, I should say, in different engagement standards and
Correct.
different outcomes.
Correct.
So you talking to me here and we engage professionally and civilly, what you're gonna find with civility, what you're gonna find is that that type of behavior should be reciprocated. Now the question is, if you and I don't have an agreement in terms of the standard of engagement, let's just say I am interacting with you and it is not to the standard that would make you comfortable. The question is, where do we go? Do we get into a situation where you reciprocate as a means of meeting my behavior? Or what is do you seek redress? Do you react? Or do you say walk away? And that is the dilemma that we have now in society. People have adopted a mindset, and it seriously and significantly presents itself in the work environment. People have adopted a mindset of seeking redress for themselves. And that in itself, and I don't want to segue too much into this aspect, but to an extent, it's one of the defining contributors to crime in our society. And it's not only about hardened crime, and we're talking about like robbery and all these other things, but I'm talking about some of the most simplistic things. You have vehicular accidents. You have how people react it. You have situations where people get into contention with the neighbors, people get into contention with people on the street, and simple disagreements escalate, Stefan, into serious crime.
Into serious, yeah.
Right?
Confrontation, yeah. It gets violently confrontational at times.
Yeah, so from where I sit, I think now that the work environment, the business environment now has little or no choice but to now work towards developing standards of training, standards of workshop, people development, right? Employers have little or no choice but to invest in this because people are coming from different segments of society.
Right.
And you, as a business owner, you have little or no control. No control, as a matter of fact, over where people come from.
All right.
They're coming from their homes.
Yeah, but when they say have little to no control over where people come from,
right?
You are the business owner, you're in charge of hiring.
No, and when I say where they come from, I'm talking about their homes, their villages, their personal space.
Okay.
Right? Of course, you have control over who comes into your organization.
Right.
But, Stefan, do you know now that there are systems and institutions in Trinidad and Tobago that teach people how to ace the interview process?
No.
Yes.
Serious?
That's a big business.
They teach you how to ace the interview process.
Now, Trinidad and Tobago, I want to be clear. There's a difference between teaching people the ethics and the etiquette in the process of interview and teaching people how to manipulate and manage the information about themselves so that they could convince the other person.
Well, I know that
there's a big difference there.
Well,
so
I know that from the time you get into politics and that kind of thing, they train you how to do interviews.
Well,
from a political side, they train you how to. There is training for that, you know. That when you sit down to answer questions, they teach you how to answer, how to sidestep, how to go wrong in a circle, how to deflect, how to, you know. So I know they teach these things because all that is part of the whole
persona. Yeah, there's a choreography that goes with these things.
In terms of that career. So I'm not surprised that people would be, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
But what that has done is that even the business owners now are forced to implement a high degree of mechanisms for vetting. And there are systems that counteract that in this country now. You have businesses that have, in equal measure, come up who specialized in background checks. Recently we were doing, and I want to be careful about this information, so let me just say, generally speaking, sometimes you have to even validate people's academic certifications because it looks legitimate. I think there's on record situations where people apply to the police services. There's been cases where people apply to the armed forces of Trinidad and Tobago, should I say, or national security forces, and they presented documents that was found to be questionable. That is how far some people have, unfortunately, taken this level of deceit. So the truth is, Stefan, is that employers cannot sidestep this responsibility because it is going to impact on their business if they allow an open gate. And then if you do not see the relevance and significance of investing in developing your people to a standard of culture that you need for your business, then you remember last week we were talking about how somebody would lie, they come to work late.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that if the employer doesn't have a system to account for their arrival to work and the person lies, then you can't take that personal and say, well, you should not have lied, because unfortunately, this person is not just a product of their choices, but they are also a product. Before they became a product of their choices, they were a product of the wider societal standards and environments that we have inadvertently, not directly, or each and every one of us, but
encourage them
inadvertently
to believe that that's the right thing.
adopted. We have adopted it. And consequently, this has led to this. And I'll tell you, on record, there's evidence that over passing of time and the development of society, people started focusing more on academics and less on the ethics, the mannerism, the person's disposition. Now, is one more important than the other? No.
No.
But there has been an imbalance in the analysis process. And that has led to that. Each and every one of us, we have history, and I'm sure there are people out there that feel a certain way about me, based on how I probably would have interacted with them. And each and every one of us have people like that. But the reality is that at the end of the day, do we have the ability to learn from our experiences? Do we have that ability? And in the work environment, you have to promote that ability. You have to make people conscious and aware of that ability and show them where the value for themselves exists if they were to adopt that as an eventuality.
I know plenty of people in life, whether it's the workplace or not the work, or I realize inside or outside the workplace. I don't know, but like they don't learn.
Well,
is that people who don't learn, you know?
I have an opinion
they make
on
the
that.
same mistake over and over and over and over, you know?
Because they have not seen the value for doing otherwise. They just hasn't. And here's what, I'll tell you this, right? I have spoken to people who are incarcerated for serious crimes, right? Back in my history, we've done some volunteer work with people like that with a particular institution. And let me tell you what I found. In a private conversation, people will admit things and acknowledge things. But because of the environment that they are in, where if they were to bring that version of themselves out, they will be judged. And they feel a certain way about how that judgment is going to impact on them. Right. So they will adopt an entirely different persona. Right? And they will present themselves as being proud of what they did. But in a private conversation, they will admit that they are not.
Right.
Now, you know what that tells me? It tells me that environment plays a significant role in determining a person's disposition.
But of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you accept that as an individual, then you must also then accept that if you are in control of an environment, you inadvertently become responsible for shaping the disposition of the people that form part of it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the point is, employers are in control of their business environment. And if they do not accept and act on the responsibility of shaping the environment, then they must accept that the outcome of that, the employee's behavior, if they lie about what time they're writing, that's on the employer.
That's
it's
on the
not
employer,
on the employee.
not on the employee.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. You have to shape the environment that your workers work in. Because, all right, if you are, in simple terms, if you are paying, let's say, warehouse work or whatever the case might be.
Right.
If your workers not satisfied that they're getting what they're worth.
Right.
Right? I'm just talking from a monetary standpoint here. Because
Sure.
money is the greatest motivator.
So
Right?
people say.
Money is the greatest motivator. Money is the greatest, listen, money is the greatest motivator.
That's a conversation.
I
for
can
next
ask you to do some extra work. Hey, do me a favor. Oh, God, but extra work, boy. Some people might be willing, but if I had a little money on top of that, it'll get done faster. I'm telling you. Money is the greatest motivator. People will work. That's why people work. People work to earn $1 to pay their bills and to live their life. So money is the greatest. But back to my point. If you feel
back to that.
Yeah, if you feel that you're underpaid, you are not going to perform to the best of your ability.
Agreed.
Right?
If you feel that way.
Right. And then what happens now is that a group of you might feel that. 3,
Right.
4, 5 workers within that space might feel that.
Right.
And then that brings the morale down in the whole organization.
Right.
Right? Or it don't even matter to be monetary. It could be simple things. It could be like the restroom facilities.
Right.
Could be in a mess and they need an upgrade. And when you have to go to the restroom, it's dirty and this and that, the other. Right? And the owner of the business is not making it a priority because use the workers. And that's how we look at you. You know what I mean? No, serious.
So listen to
it have
this,
little
right?
things. It have little things that an employee that could inspire
Right.
persons to perform better. It doesn't necessarily have to be money, like I said. It could be the work environment, how clean it is, things like that. Yeah.
So let me challenge you on this, right? But we're gonna.
And it's up to the owner to create that environment.
I know we have a very short time today, so
Yeah, I wanted to take a couple calls,
So you know what? We're gonna pause on that.
If you have any question for Mr. Narinesingh, 327-7400. You can go ahead and make the call, and once the call comes through, we will stop and we'll take that call. Go ahead.
So let me tell you this. In the first instance, we're going to explore this conversation. Is money the ideal motivator or the highest motivator for a person who's working, right?
Right.
Now that's going to be next week. We're going to explore that deeper, but I'll point this out. I have found that there are environments where people work. They're well paid by the standard of, by looking at the standard of where a salary benchmark is set for a particular role. So
right.
they're well paid by that standard, right? And because their work environment is toxic,
right?
Because they have a problem with the way the management level persons speak to them, or because the facilities and the work environment are not accommodating, they will leave that job for a lesser paying job or a further distance job.
Because they're more comfortable.
Because the environment, right. And then I have had there are institutions that I am part of where the salary is not the best in the industry level, but because the environment is accommodating and the environment is it accentuates the recognition that they are human beings and not robots and not people that are just coming to function, they will work there for 20 years. So it is my opinion.
That's all.
That,
hold your thought.
Okay.
Yeah, morning.
Morning caller.
I believe you might have a point by saying money is the greatest motivator, but respect and appreciation also plays a part. The other thing is we seem to be bent on education for employment and position, where you discriminate against, I believe discrimination could be a strong word, but that's the word I have in thought right now, against the experience of a person. They mightn't have the qualifications, but they know the job like from the back of their hand, like they knows the job, but they don't have the qualification. But you choose the person with the qualifications, and then this person with the experience has to teach them to be the boss.
Right. Right, I
There's
understand what
also
you're saying.
Understand
problem
that.
in that
Yes.
aspect.
That's a
The other
salient
thing
point.
is, I would like you to explain norms and practice in the workplace for Stefan. I asked him that question about 2 or 3 days ago.
Sorry?
What? Repeat it. What's the practice?
Norms and practice. Norms and practice. Outside
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the terms and conditions, you continue to do things that is outside of your job description, and it becomes the norm. You call it
Custom
norms
and practice.
in the industrial world.
Okay.
I'll listen off it.
No problem. Yeah, man. All right.
So,
You're going for that.
Okay, so norms and practices actually take precedence over policies. And the reason why is in the
Norms and practices
practices
take precedence over policy.
over policy. And here's why.
Okay.
If I write a policy that says you should not have your cell phone on this desk, the company prohibits the placing of a cell phone on the desk on the set. And over time, every day you come, Stefan, and you put your phone here. Now the policy is no cell phone on the desk. The practice is you're here and you're putting the cell phone on the desk. And the business, the employer, disregards this occurrence. The employer does not enforce this quote-unquote policy that exists. And then over time, if this were to escalate into contention, the industrial court will say that even though you have a policy that says that the person is not allowed to have their cell phone on the desk, you as the employer have allowed the practice of the cell phone being on the desk, and therefore we accept that it was acceptable by you by virtue of it being allowed.
Okay.
Yes. So I think what the caller is alluding to is the relevance and significance of custom and practice as opposed to policy and procedures. Now there are certain things. You remember when they when they enforced the speed limit?
Yeah.
The whole country was up and up. But what they had to do was give people time. They said over this period, and they've done it for a lot of different things. You've had different situations come up in this country where the government said, by this time you must become compliant, right? And that is because even in common law standards, even at a national level, custom and practice becomes precedent to policy position if the authorities have allowed it to exist over time.
Okay.
And you can't just get up and unilaterally enforce a policy. And if a policy does not exist in writing, and the custom and practice has been a particular standard, then that becomes the law.
Okay. All right. Understood. Understood. Let me see if we can squeeze one more here. One more, and then we got to take the break. We got to wrap things up and take the break. Yeah, morning.
Yeah, morning. So custom and practices is good, right? If it's an unsafe act. If it is that they're doing a custom and practice that's unsafe and the employer wants to regulate it and needs to fast track it, right? Through policies and procedures, they can't do that by law. So I think they need to be clear with the public as custom and practice versus unsafe act.
You got that?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, caller. So I appreciate your point in clarifying. One of the things that I would say though is this. We have seen situations, I'm sure the caller, if he's in health and safety, he probably would have had the experience. A person is doing something, and they've been doing it for years. As far as the standards of safety is concerned, that would be unsafe. However, they've done it without issue or incident for years. And what happens is, if you put a person who is inexperienced in that role, they will definitely get injured. When you analyze custom and practice as opposed to safety measures, right? The protocol for a person doing something unsafe, remember, and Call, I want to remind you, the operative term here is allowance by the employer. The employer can't get up tomorrow morning and say, I'm going to penalize you for doing something unsafe when the employer has allowed that practice, right, to exist.
Yeah,
what the employer must do is now a process of training and reorientation, etc., etc. So when it comes to enforceability, and that was the point I was going towards, I want to assure you that I'm not in any way, and just general public, I'm not in any way implying or stating that something that is wrong, unsafe, or detrimental to any type of environment must be allowed or has to be allowed on the basis of custom and practice. What I'm really pushing towards is the point of how the accountability will apply.
Okay.
And that in itself shapes the environment. And the accountability requires a process to come out of where you have allowed it to go.
Okay.
That's the point. So even with the safety issues, the employer has the responsibility for the orientation and reorientation.
Okay.
Right? And the employee must, I agree with the caller, the employee must comply.
Must comply.
Yeah, yeah. So if they come and tell you, listen, we have a policy that says no cell phone on the desk, you've been doing it, but now we are reminding you that we have this policy and we know that we have allowed it, but we want to let you know by next week, Wednesday, we will now be enforcing formally, so we want you to get you in the habit of not putting it on the desk anymore.
Okay.
And then you might say, the reason why I have it on the desk is because if we get a call from the public, I'm going to have to take it. And then we now have to relook our structure and our process to now decide whether do we want the calls, is it relevant to the job? And then now we adjust the policy accordingly. The same thing applies to health and safety.
Same thing applies to health and safety. All right. All right, well, we're out of time because I've got Dr. Watson coming up, right? Next week, of course, you'll have a little more time. Well, I mean, we went 25 here, 26. All right, so 26 minutes was supposed to be 15. Yeah. All right, but we got to wrap things up. I want to thank you for coming.
Of course, sir.
Of course. And we look forward to your calls and your comments and any questions you have in this segment as we go further. Next week, we'll have a little more time. Next week is half an hour. But for now, we got to wrap things up with this segment and get to Dr. Watson. So we go into the break, and when we return, Breaking On continues. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this.